When I first saw the spoilers for this game, I thought to myself, well, this is the most mind-numbing, dumbest, shit-brained idea I have ever seen in my life. But then I had to stop myself and was like, no. This is Naughty Dog we're talking about. These guys make good-ass games. There's no way that this is as bad as it sounds, right?
Don't shoot. Joel, please get up.
I don't know, man. To say this game is getting a lot of hate right now would be a massive understatement. And admittedly, before playing this game, I was all aboard the hate train too. I have to admit though, that this isn't necessarily a bad game, it just doesn't really come close to living up to the original in terms of the narrative. I don't think this story comes across at all like they intended it to. But before I address the Ronda Rousey-sized elephant in the room, I have to acknowledge this game does get a lot right. The graphics are absolutely phenomenal, hands down the best visuals I have seen on a console game, and it's not even close. That mountain be looking fine as hell. The soundtrack is a personal highlight of mine and just perfectly captures the tone of this game. Seriously, you could put this music playing right now over a video of puppies frolicking in a field and I'd still be shitting my pants. The gameplay is much better this time around. My favorite gameplay addition is the Silencer, which adds some much needed variety to the stealth mechanics and allows you to take out enemies that would otherwise be difficult to reach. The flashbacks are full of emotion and character depth. Shooting is now much more visceral and satisfying.
He needs some milk!
And perhaps best of all, there isn't a piece of shit palette anywhere to be seen in this game. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to the parts of this game that I thought were total donkey shit. Namely, the story and the writing. Of course, we can't talk about this game without talking about Biclops over here. Killing Joel aside, Abby just doesn't really have much personality. Seriously, try and think of some words that you would use to describe Abby that don't have to do with her physical appearance or her backstory. Yeah, nothing really comes to mind for me except that she never skips arm day. Speaking of her backstory, I don't think her father dying had nearly the emotional impact that the writers intended it to. This guy gets like 10 minutes of screen time, and we are given little reason to care about him before he dies. So compared to Joel losing Sarah in the first game, Abby losing her father falls just so flat in comparison. Abby's role in the story also just makes zero sense to me. They are clearly trying to draw a parallel between Joel and Abby here, and seem to be saying that what Abby did to Joel was essentially the same as what he did to her father. This just isn't true though. Joel didn't hunt Abby's father. Joel didn't torture Abby's father. Joel killed Abby's father to save the one thing he holds most dear in the world. Abby, on the other hand, shot Joel in his kneecaps after he saved her life and made sure he died a slow, agonizing death. These two things are nowhere near the same level of fucked up. The game just wants to hit you over the head with the idea that Joel is some kind of terrible person. Clitorally. I don't fully buy this though, because even though Joel has always been pretty ruthless, he did what he had to protect his loved ones. The writers also seem to be forgetting that after Joel delivered Ellie to the Fireflies, they tried to kick him out at gunpoint without any of his weapons or supplies. So they aren't exactly innocent here. Now, Joel isn't a saint or anything, but he isn't the sadist that Abby is either, so the parallel between these two characters just makes no sense. There's also a pretty obvious attempt to draw a comparison between Ellie and Abby, but again, this just doesn't work. Don't get me wrong, Ellie does some pretty fucked up shit in this game. Unlike Abby though, Ellie doesn't ever kill anyone who is unarmed or unable to fight back, unless it's just a random NPC, in which case, who cares?
You don't have to do this.
Ellie clearly shows remorse and regret because she has physical reactions to her own deeds. She shakes after killing Nora and has a straight up panic attack after killing Mel. Abby though never shows any remorse for slaughtering a completely defenseless Joel or anyone else for that matter. She is a sadist in the purest sense of the word, and the fact that this game tries to equate all these characters morally is kind of insulting. This idea that no matter which character you're playing as a shitty person is ever present in this game. This was already explored in the last game though, so it isn't even original. It was handled much better in the original though, especially with the ending. You know, after killing all the Fireflies and killing Marlene, the player should probably feel conflicted, but the game doesn't just straight up tell you that you should. The themes and philosophy in the original were much more nuanced and subtle, whereas in part 2, the game constantly berates you with this idea that you should be second guessing yourself. This heavy-handed approach really hurt the overall experience for me because it just felt like I was being pandered to. The thing is I don't necessarily think that this game's narrative is broken, but the structure is. It actually makes sense that Joel would face consequences for what he did to the Fireflies last game and get killed. Why Neil Druckmann thought that we would actually want to play as this character after she viciously killed Joel, though, just completely baffles me. Our first introduction to Joel and the story of the first Last of Us is through the tragic loss of his daughter. This emotional dick punch of an opening allows us to impose our own paternal feelings onto Joel, and we instantly connect and empathize with him. So when Joel massacres a swarm of dudes to save Ellie, we can understand why he did it, even if we feel morally conflicted about it. Abby, on the other hand, starts out as a blank slate, and our first introduction to her is when she murders a character that we all adore. If we were able to get Abby's perspective and understand why she wants revenge before she kills Joel, then maybe we could understand her better, but we don't get this information until after the player has already developed some strong negative feelings toward her. The game also has weird timing with Ellie's killing of Abby's friends. We don't really get a chance to see these characters until later in the game during Abby's sections, so we don't have a chance to grow a connection with them until after Ellie has already killed them. So any remorse the player is supposed to feel for these characters is all done in retrospect, so it loses most of the dramatic impact. Basically, the order of events in this game just seems so back-asswards to me and makes no sense narratively. It doesn't help that the characters in Abby's crew aren't really all that noteworthy or likable either. I think the only exception to that is Lev. I actually did like Lev. He's almost got this like monk vibe to him, and he serves as such a stark contrast to basically every other character, so he really stands out. So one thing that I've seen online that's getting a lot of hate is the ending, and I kind of disagree on this. I have one big problem with the ending, which I'll get to in a second, but I was actually relieved that Ellie spared Abby here. Is it because I care about Abby? No, fuck Abby. I was relieved because it shows without a shadow of a doubt that Abby and Ellie are not one and the same, which the game was trying to say that they were. But Ellie was able to break the perpetual, never-ending cycle of violence and revenge, and Abby couldn't. In a game that tries so hard to make me feel like my favorite characters are sadistic pieces of shit, Ellie is able to claim the moral high ground, and no matter how the writers want me to feel about Abby, I know in my heart that Ellie is a better person now. I think a lot of people are missing the point on Ellie sparing Abby here. It's not that Abby's death wasn't deserved, because it was. This moment wasn't about Abby though, it was about Ellie finally breaking the cycle so that she can move on. Despite this, the story for The Last of Us Part 2 is ultimately a tragic one for Ellie, and this is where I have a big problem with the ending. After it's all said and done, Ellie comes home to an empty house. Dina and the baby are gone. She picks up Joel's guitar and tries to play the first song he ever played for her. She can't though, because she lost 2 of her fingers in her fight with Abby. The message here is clear. Ellie's lust for revenge has severed her connection to Joel. In fact, Ellie has lost everything in this game. She lost her friends, she lost her father figure, she lost her family. So what exactly was the point of Ellie sparing Abby? Did she not just redeem herself by breaking the cycle? And yet Abby is the one that gets to go find the Fireflies with Lev and gets the happier ending? If the game's message here is that revenge is bad, then it feels like a total slap in the face that Armzilla, the chick who tortured and mangled Joel, gets a happier ending than Ellie. I feel like this muddles the message that the game is trying to convey and leaves the ending as a shambled mess. This game just seems needlessly cruel to me, and in the end, it just kind of feels like a generic revenge is bad plot and doesn't come close to being as impactful or as deep as the first game was. Outside of some really good flashback scenes, I really just think this story missed the mark. Of course, this is just my interpretation and my opinion, so if you like this game, that's awesome, and I'm glad you did. It just wasn't for me. If you did like it though, I'd like to hear some of your reasons why, or if there's some other flaws you found in the game that I didn't mention, I'd like to hear those too. Alright, so that's all I got for this video. If you somehow made it all the way to the end here, then I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Peace.